We're gonna sing a song about the passage of time, and hope you guys like it. It's called Brother's Song.
Your beating heart is speaking loud, like the sound of Carolina thunderstorms on summer night. You need to go to feel alone and hear the flowing river speak to you in spirits from afar. They sing,
Okay, we all know the theme this month is time. It's chosen by our friends at the Edmonton, Canada chapter. Time is something we treasure. It's something we complain that we don't have enough of. It's something that we measure. And it's something that we're going to hear our speaker, Patrice Gaines, talk about in just a moment. But before we do, Smitty, do you know what time it is? It's time to win! Yeah! Okay.
Sleeping, napping. Time to go to bed. Ball dance before.
Patrice Gaines. Patrice is a veteran journalist, author, motivational speaker, and a life coach. She became interested in transformation when in her mid-20s she realized that if she was going to be a good mother to her daughter, she had to turn from a life of drug abuse and petty crime. She began writing, eventually becoming a reporter at the Washington Post. She's been a commentator on NPR. She has won numerous journalism awards, several prestigious art fellowships, and a Soros Justice Media Fellowship. She appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show. She was featured on NBC Dateline. My fellow Charlotteans, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our speaker on the theme of time, Patrice Gaines.
First, I want to thank Creative Mornings for taking an approach to this subject that would allow you to include a community that is often forgotten. Yeah. For 16 years, I worked as a reporter at the Washington Post. My mornings were kind of like this, or my days. I would arrive at 10 a.m., get off the elevator, I'd go to an office behind the receptionist's desk, get a cup of coffee, I'd walk across the newsroom to the Metro section. I'd sit down at my desk, I'd check my email, check my voice messages, and then by 10:30, I would walk over to my editor. I'd find out if I needed to do a follow-up story on the article I did the day before, or if there was a new assignment, or just perhaps, maybe, I'd have an opportunity to pitch an idea of my own. After that, the race was on. I would watch the clock off and on all day. Whatever article I was working on had to be reported and written and at my editor's desk by 5 o'clock. This meant that if I had not gotten it there, there was no excuse. You know, the Washington Post is a daily paper, damn it, and you knew that when you were hired. You didn't get to say, oh, I need a little bit more time, I'll get that to you tomorrow. By 4:30, if I have not finished my story, if I'm wrestling with the ending, trying to make it better, or heaven forbid, if I'm working on a lead, then I get an ache in my neck. If I need coffee, I don't get a chance to get another cup. If I have to go to the bathroom, I have to hold it. If I have a dress at the cleaners that needs to be picked up, it will just have to wait until tomorrow. By this time, the pain is inching down my back. And this is my life for 16 years. The pain in my body lasts until I hit the send button that swoops my story over to the editor. And I try to get it there early. It might be a story about some poor teenage boy who is gunned down during a drive-by. Or maybe it's the day I spent with First Lady Nancy Reagan. Or an afternoon with a young black man who is not in trouble. I want my story there first so that I don't have to wait for all the other stories to be edited. When it's my turn, there are always questions. And so, if necessary, I have to make more phone calls. And I have to get the answers to those questions. And only after all the answers are in am I free. And my body can relax. Until the next day, when I step off the elevator at 10 a.m. and I go around the receptionist desk to get my cup of coffee, and I walk across the newsroom to my desk, and I check my voice messages, and I check my email, and then by 10:30, I am at my editor's asking about what story I will be working on that day. 1 year, to get away from the tyranny of deadline, I decide I'm going to take a playwriting class. Our instructor gives us an assignment to write a scene. And I write this wonderful, clever scene with all this great dialogue and action. And the instructor reads it and says to me, "Well, my dear, all of this would take about 2 minutes on the stage." I am appalled because I realize I am losing a grip on how long it really takes for things to happen. I am so used to condensing a day into 15 inches or 600 words. I worked on a production line called a newsroom. I manufactured a product called a newspaper. I assembled words into sentences. I assembled sentences into paragraphs and paragraphs into articles. I watched the clock all day, and yet I was losing my sense of time. One day I find myself at my desk in my office at home, and I'm making Christmas cards, and it's in June. I have to start 6 months early because the list of people who want my cards has grown, and I insist on making every card by hand. In the middle of this, though, I realize I am like in the flow, in that place you get where you just don't know what time it is, you don't care about the clock, you don't even know where you are. It's a Zen moment, it's perfect, and I am so happy. And in this moment, I remember that when I was in high school, I dreamed of being an artist. I used to paint, I used to win art contests. My neighbor wanted to pay to send me to the Corcoran School of Art. But this was before I discovered drugs and boys. In this moment, though, I have to ask myself, why did I stop making art? And as soon as I ask, I have this vision of myself in this very brief and very bad marriage I had. And I am painting. And I used to, when I would pull out my paints, my husband would take a wet brush and he would either mess up the paints or he would paint crazily over page after page, mocking me. I am startled by this memory. I think, oh my God, I stopped painting because of an abusive husband. I let this thought roll around in my head. If somebody had told me one day, girlfriend, you were going to stop painting because of a man, I would have said, you are crazy, never. But I did. I stopped painting. And I discovered writing. I started writing because you could write anywhere, anytime, any place, and you could write secretly. And my husband couldn't take it from me, and he couldn't change it. Writing freed me. And yet there is this one time in my life that is frozen in time. June 19th, 1970. I was 21, and I had a drug problem. I went to a Steppenwolf concert at the Park Center. And I was with two friends. And these guys sold drugs to an undercover agent while we were there. And I was charged with possession of heroin with intent to distribute, possession of a needle and syringe, both felonies. I didn't sell drugs. I used drugs. But I had everything stashed in my pocketbook. The good thing is that I committed this crime at that time. Because if I had done it at this time in 2015, I might have received a mandatory sentence of 10 years. Instead, I spent 3 weeks in the Charlotte jail. The first thing I noticed is they have no clocks. I was pissed off. Ironically, my 7 cellmates and I always wanted to know what time it is, although we weren't going anywhere. We had, after all, been raised on the clock. When I went before a judge, I was terrified because I didn't know how much time I would receive. I took the advice of a lawyer and I pressed my huge afro into a straight style, one that he said a white judge might think that a good girl would wear. As it turns out, I was sentenced only to serve the 3 weeks that I had already been in jail. But I was a convicted felon. I had to pay a couple of $1,000s in fine, and I had to serve 5 years probation. When I got out of jail, time had a new meaning for me. 3 weeks isn't very long when it comes to a sentence, but you have to understand, it wasn't just the 3 weeks I had lost. It was the 4 years up until the 3 weeks, the 4 years of doing drugs. In that time, most of my friends had gone to college and graduated. They had gotten married and had families or bought houses. I had dropped Quaaludes and LSD and Black Beauties. I had shot heroin and earned a criminal record. The clock was ticking. But there was that one moment frozen in time. After jail, I could not for the longest get anyone to hire me. I am a convicted felon. No matter what else I did in the future, I learned that a large part of who I am defined as is determined by what I did, the worst thing I did on one day in my life. It doesn't matter that I've written 2 books. It didn't matter that I won journalism awards or was awarded fellowships at prestigious art retreats. It doesn't matter that I volunteer with the women at the Charlotte jail. A few summers ago, I had a part-time job with the U.S. Census Bureau, and I was fired because of my criminal record, which was 4 decades old. I had learned to hate this young girl. She ruined my life. But I had never seen that picture for 25 years until I was featured on a segment of NBC Dateline, and the producer tracked it down. And when I looked at it the first time, all I could think was, oh my God, she was a baby. The woman I have hated all my life was just a child. And that when I go to the Charlotte jail, I often say to the women, this is my baby picture. But I like to say also to everyone, this is what a writer looks like. Today, I see time in a way I've never seen it before. Because as an older person, for the first time, I see time as something that's finite. The Social Security Administration says that a woman my age has, on an average, of 20 more years of life. And this makes me think of something that the women said to me when I was in jail that summer, and they were so sure I was going to the big prison. They advised me to do the time. Don't let the time do you. They told me that this means to take it one day at a time. Don't fret about what could have been, should have been, might have been. Those kinds of thoughts can just drive you crazy. Don't be a hostage to time. And so I have to ask you, have you set goals that restrain your creativity? Have you locked yourself into a little life built by other people's expectations and rules? At a recent book club, one of our members admitted that she had not read the book. And she said, I just never have time to read. When I'm at the beach and I get to read and read and read as much as I want, I feel like the wealthiest woman in the world, she said. Not all prisons are buildings. I tell incarcerated women all the time, you know, a lot of those people out there on the other side of that wall, they are not free. I want them to understand that you can build your own prison. So I beg you, step out of the box. Don't wait for someone else to come along with the key. Free yourself. Do the time. Don't let the time do you.